Okay, so let us critique the... 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 Okay, so let us critique... Okay, so let us critique this video by Cameron Bertuzzi and Jimmy Akin on the virgin birth. And I I actually correspond with this fellow here, John Loftus. He let me know that this stream was coming up. Just want to say, Jimmy Akin, he tries to derail this discussion into a discussion on deductive reasoning. This is a historical discussion. This is a discussion on, did an historical event occur? However, Jimmy Akin here tries to derail this discussion into a priori reasoning, into Thomistic deductionism. And the thing about it is, society began to progress once it gave up on deductionism and in its place began to infer from data. And so John Loftus is correct here. We have no data to support the virgin birth of Jesus Christ. We have anonymous fragmentary documents from 2000 years ago, two of the Gospels. That is insufficient evidence to establish the miraculous. It's one of the rules of historiography that historical evidence in and of itself cannot establish a miracle. And so even if we had the best historical evidence for the virgin birth, we could not establish it as historical fact because, as Bart Ehrman points out, history is about what probably happened in the past, and a miracle is the least likely event by definition to have occurred in the past. One thing I'd like to point out here is that Jimmy Akin tries to equivocate between a planet and a star, and John Loftus rightfully calls him out for this. The Greek word for star is aster, whereas the Greek word for planet is aster planetes, and John Loftus points this out. Planetes means wanderer, so aster planetes is a wandering star. And there is an episode of The Big Bang Theory where Sheldon explains this to Penny, and so John Loftus is correct. If this was meant to be a planet, the Gospel author would have used aster planetes. But he didn't. He said aster, which means star. Uh, and uh, this fellow here, uh, he correctly points out, like, this is all headcanon, his making up stuff about the Magi and astrological signs in the sky. It's something actually that Inspiring Philosophy did. Michael Jones, I mean, the text of the text of Matthew clearly says that the star moved about the sky, and then uh, histemi, sorry, and then histemi means to stand still. Uh, yeah, I mean, uh, this guy here, Jimmy Akin, he said that uh, histemi does not mean to stop. That's not entirely true. Histemi means to stand still. So, according to the gospel narratives, uh, the star stood still over the over the house, but we know that Jupiter does not stand still. It's a planet; it's constantly in motion. Uh, so, I mean, there's all headcanon, and then he brings up the ridiculous. Uh, but I just want to go on to Michael Jones. In Joshua, Michael Jones of Inspiring Philosophy tries this exact same. I mean, I think all of these are dishonest tactics. You know, I think that apologetics is an extremely dishonest profession. I mean, the people who employ tactics like this are either, you know, extremely stupid or extremely dishonest. I mean, you know, to make up all this head canon about Magi following a star, you know, following the planet Jupiter when this is not in the text. And this fellow here, I can't think of his name, but yeah, Darren Slade, he calls him out in this. Like, none of this is in the text, it's just head canon so as to make a superstitious story about stars floating about the sky willy nilly, to try and make it cohere to modern cosmology and modern science, about which the gospel authors knew absolutely nothing. As I said before, that the Bible is a flat earth book from Genesis to Revelation, with perhaps a singular exception. St. Paul mentions a God who created the worlds. You know, so maybe in the New Testament, some of the Greek ideas about heliocentrism began to, the Greek pagan ideas about heliocentrism began to filter through. But apart from that, from Genesis to Revelation, the the earth is flat. So yeah, the histemi means to stand still. So to translate it as stop, I mean, that's not a mistranslation. That's just a dynamic equivalent translation. Uh, if something stands still, then it's stopped. But you know, Jimmy Akin wants us to believe that the planet Jupiter stood still over a house in Bethlehem, and that is patently absurd, patently ridiculous. And Darren here beautifully calls him out on this, and he mentions that he bought uh, cuneiform uh, transcripts for 300 US dollars. I call this argumentum ad libros. Argumentum ad libros means arguing towards book. Arguing towards books. Look, I'm a really smart guy. Uh, just look at all the books I have on my bookshelf. And Pine Creek Dog, he puts this beautifully, that the reason why these people sit in front of libraries full of dense books is so as to signal that they aren't stupid for believing in this stuff. how can I be stupid when I've got all these dense scholarly tomes sitting behind me? But Michael Jones, he says that whenever Joshua says that the sun stood still in the sky, well, that doesn't mean that the sun really stood still in the sky. What that actually means is that there was an astrological phenomenon in the sky. Because I mean, the text itself is ridiculous. It's absurd. You know that the sun doesn't stop. It's orbiting about the galactic center. Uh, so the text is indefensible. So that's when apologists come up with a totally new interpretation that, well, when the book of Joshua says that the sun stood still in the sky, what it really means is that there was some sort of esoteric uh, astrological phenomenon. I mean, this stuff is extremely dishonest. I mean, the text says what it says, it means what it means. And similarly, in the Gospel of Matthew, the text says what it says, it means what it means. It says aster, which means star. It does not say aster planetes, which means planet. And, you know, John Loftus beautifully calls Akin out on this. But yes, Akin wants to derail a discussion on history into a discussion on deductive deductive philosophy, and these are the ridiculous premises that he puts up. Uh, Wait, some of the premises are being blocked.